Are you ready for change? Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to change these priorities? Are you ready to elect a congressman whose life's work demonstrates his qualifications to be an outstanding United States congressman? If I don't hear a lot of yeses, I'm going to keep talking. We're getting better. Are you ready to elect a congressman who's going to vote and work to bring our troops home? This is an important one. Don't get this one wrong. Are you, are we, are all of us ready to give Chris Shays the retirement he so richly deserves? Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly second the nomination of our next United States Congressman from Connecticut's 4th Congressional District, Jim Hahn.
Well, every day in life is a fresh start. And let's face it, I think the United States of America needs a fresh start right now. And it starts right now, right here, in this convention hall. And it starts at the Democratic Convention Halls across this state and across this country. People are going to get up, they're going to vote for great candidates, we're going to take our country back. In August, we're going to have a smart, progressive, Democratic presidential candidate, and Jim Himes working with that candidate, we're going to start turning this country around. At this time, will Jim Himes come forward and accept the nomination of delegates from the 4th Congressional District. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, elected officials. Thank you, delegates. And thank you, my good Democratic friends. Thank you, Bill and Max and Amanda, for those kind words of introduction. And thank you especially to Diane Farrell for being here tonight. And how about another thanks for the step dancers? I didn't know I had to follow them. Big round of applause. I also need to offer a special thanks to my wife, Mary. I met Mary in January of 1993. I was on a blind date. Not with her. But I sat at the same table with Mary in a restaurant in Little Italy, and I spoke with her a little bit. And I went into my boss at the bank the next day, and I said, last night I met the woman I'm going to marry. And 2 years later, we walked down the aisle, and we said our vows, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health. And there was absolutely nothing in there about a congressional campaign. So thank you, Mary. This moment is right up there with the birth of my 2 children as one of the proudest moments of my life. You see, I am an unapologetic patriot. I am proud of the hope and the promise that this country has offered to the citizens of this district, your parents and my parents, your children and my children. My daughter Emma was born just months before George Bush took office. And in her 8 years, that promise, that hope, they have begun to fade. For the first time in our history, parents like me are wondering whether our children will grow up in a country less prosperous, less fair, less admired than the one our parents left to us. But we Democrats, we are here tonight because we will not let that happen. We Democrats are keepers of a truth that George Bush and his friends have asked us to forget. It is a sacred truth. The truth that for all of our rugged individualism, we are at our best, at our most American, when we unite and strive for a common purpose. All that is best about us starts with Americans coming together behind a common purpose, deciding at great risk that we would build a country around the ideal of liberty, delivering on that promise at great cost so that all Americans of every race, of each gender, rich or poor, would stand equal before the law, putting a man on the moon because a young president challenged us to do so. But of course, common purpose is also why we volunteer at the library, or join the local fire department, or tutor a child. It is who we are at our very best. We are keepers of that truth. Our unions, our town committees, our work in every corner of government, we are what keeps our democracy alive and strong. And now you offer me the Democratic nomination for U.S. Congress in a beautiful school in a rising city. My friends, my brothers and sisters, I am deeply, deeply honored to accept. I look out at you and I see the stories of America, stories of hope and opportunity, stories of family and community, stories of redemption and second chances and hope. And I too have an American story. I grew up in a small town, Pennington, New Jersey. We had 2 stoplights, 3 churches, and 1 policeman, who, as far as anybody knew, only name was Chiefy. My mom was a single working mother. My home would be called broken, except that it wasn't. My mom came home from work every day, and she would gather us around the dinner table, and she would force us to do our homework, and she would challenge us to be the very best that we could be. No one in this town had a lot of extra money, but we had something better. We had opportunity. And so I worked every job there was to work in that small town. I clerked in the drugstore, I stocked shelves in the hardware store, I washed dishes in the pizza place, I painted houses and sanded floors and mowed lawns. I was an emergency medical technician on the rescue squad. But most importantly, I got to go to a good public school. That public school, those teachers, and the support of a community of good people opened door after door for me. That's why I believe so strongly and so deeply that we owe every single American child the very best education possible. I believe in the American dream because I'm lucky enough to have lived it. But I know that the American dream is not a gift. It is there because we nourish it, we support it, we sustain it. It is our job, our common purpose, to support the dream by making sure that every child of Connecticut has access to education, to health care, to safe neighborhoods, and good jobs. Chris Days has now been in Congress for 21 long years. And during those 2 decades, the challenges we face in this district have gotten worse. We're stuck in traffic more and more every day. We continue to lose thousands of good jobs. And our urban schools are struggling with more mandates and less money. On top of that, in the last 8 years, Chris Shays has followed George Bush as he wrecked our economy, ravaged our Constitution, and ruined our nation's reputation in the world. Chris Shays followed George Bush in getting us into this disastrous war. Chris Shays followed George Bush in opposing timelines for the withdrawal of our brave troops. Chris Shays followed George Bush in supporting special tax cuts for the people who needed it the very least, guaranteeing that we would have the largest deficit in our nation's history. For the last 8 years, Chris Shays has followed George Bush whenever he asked. This district deserves a leader who will represent our values, reflect our needs, and deliver results. So now it's our turn to ask Chris Shays to follow George Bush one more time into retirement. We've had waiting longer for results. Tonight, somewhere in Stanford, a father is going to lie awake wondering if he's going to have a job next month and wondering if his son will go to college. And he'll open the newspaper over his morning coffee and he'll read about another man's son who died in a war that never should have been fought. Tomorrow morning, a widow in Trumbull will look at her gas bills and the property taxes and her health care costs, and she's going to sadly conclude that she can no longer live in the town that she spent her life in. Tomorrow night, some teacher in Norwalk is going to reach deep into her pocket to take out money to buy supplies for her students because unfunded mandates have blown a hole in her school's budget. That is what must change. That is what we must change. Here, tonight, and in November, when hundreds of thousands of people turn out at the polls from Greenwich to Bridgeport to send a simple message to Washington, we are Americans and we are better than this. Tonight I'm asking for your help. I'm asking you to stand with me from now until November so that together we can take our country back. Together we'll rebuild our great economy. Together we will make sure that prosperity in this district is once again shared. We will create incentives to keep jobs in Connecticut rather than rewarding those who send jobs abroad. We will put to rest this ludicrous fiction that there is nothing we can do about this traffic, which is slowing our lives, choking our children, and strangling our economy. We will stand for fair wages and health care and paid sick days so that American men and women get not just a wage, but a measure of decency and dignity. And together, we will fix an energy policy that is killing our planet. My friends, this problem is what we do best. It will require us to innovate. It will require new technology and focused investments. All the things we use to create computers and the internet and to cure hundreds of diseases. And the very best thing about this is when we finally get energy right, as we know we must, we will create thousands of jobs right here in Connecticut. Together, at long last, we will bring our brave troops home. We will do this so that not one more young American life is lost. And so that the $12 billion that we send to Iraq every single month stay right here to help pay for health care and education. Must ever go bankrupt because someone gets sick. No business should ever close because healthcare costs are spiraling. No American should ever have to choose between curing a child and paying the rent. Together, at long last, we will commit to healthcare for every single American. Brothers and sisters, we are at a unique moment in our history. My opponent complains that our nation and our great party have become too partisan. But he represents a party that has lost its way, that abandoned the values of Abraham Lincoln and Theodore Roosevelt and sought advantage by turning American against American, rich against poor, native against immigrant, black against white. We Democrats are keepers of the great truth that we Americans are at our best when we serve a common purpose. And we will restore that truth to its rightful place in Washington, in Hartford, and in the hearts of every single American. And so I ask you, will you stand with me? Will you stand with me so that every family knows that they can see a doctor when someone falls ill? Will you stand with me so that someday every American can say, I was educated in America and that has made all the difference? Will you stand with me so that our children will look back and say, the planet was in peril and America led the way? When we stand together, when we start to address the problems that really matter, when we rise up to restore opportunity from Oxford to Stanford, from Ridgefield to Bridgeport, when we elect a Democratic president in Congress, we will join a chorus across this country and say, we are Americans and we are back!